Just thought I'd do this because I've been checking the levels, the rest are okay, but on this one it's something interesting you might see. Now I know the axle's lifted up in the air, but I want you to watch this when I take the plug out. You see the colour of the oil, and you see the quantity of the oil. That means that the seals in the hub, the oil is migrating across here and getting into the axle. You know that grease? Look at it. Now the breathers are working okay because there was no glugging or anything like that, but that is way too much oil in there. Looks like I'm going to have to do some work on this axle. Change those seals. No big deal. All I'll have to do is take the hubs off and split this seal and pull it out. It's no big deal. And that means I can replace those seals, because those plates, because they're looking a bit funny. Is this important? I don't know. Judging by the amount of oil that's coming out of here, that means these have hardly got anything in them. I don't know about that. Should I drain that oil off? I think I will. I think I'll drain that oil off and put some fresh oil in. I've got to take the wheels off to do the bearings and things. I don't know whether to do it all at the same time. Ooh, depends if I've got any seals. If I haven't got any seals, that puts paid to that. But I think I'll drop this oil off. Mind you, I tell you something, I think last time I did this oil was about 5 years ago. Well, you can say I don't do that many kilometres, I go by hours. But that's certainly not good. I think I'll do this as a separate video. But really, when I was checking that front oil, I noticed something was pretty odd, because there was swivel grease coming out of the axle tube. And I think it's coming from this driver's left-hand side swivel. Now I seem to realise when I did this truck all those years ago, this is a Disco 1 axle. That's why it's got the solid discs on, but it's got the flanges on for like a 300 TDI. Now, how are we going to check the oil level? Well, we'll do this with a piece of shrink wrap tubing, and we're going to take the bung out and we're going to stick it down inside. Right, we'll stick it right down to the bottom. Get a piece of paper towel, because it's obviously going to get oil on it on the outside. No, it's going to get nothing. What I was going to say was, you can actually tell the level of the oil because it goes inside, so you can wipe it off, because you'll get contaminated on the outside. Yeah, I don't think this has got much in it at all. Yeah, that's where it's coming from. You see what I mean? Look, you see how it's contaminated there? You wipe it off and there's your oil inside. So we've got a problem with this side. So I'm going to stop this video now, come back to it in a minute or two, because I'm going to rebuild this side. I haven't got any room at all, but my batteries are going flat on my camera, on my lights, so I've got to get them charged up. Then we'll do, like I said, we'll do this as a separate video. Right, as we found out in a previous video, we've got several faults with this hub on my 130. Just minor, but we might as well fix it now before it comes major. We've established that the seal and the swivel is migrating grease into the axle tube, which isn't very good, because it ends up with grease in the axle. The grease gets mixed with the oil in the axle but doesn't come this way, so these can run dry. Now, also the retaining ring on the back of the swivel, which we'll see in a minute, is pretty rusty. Also, the mud shield is missing, not that it does anything. And also we got to do the wheel bearing and check out the swivel pin as well. So we've got a lot of little things to do, but like I said to before, let's do little things before they come major things. I'll show you the kit I'm going to use. This is the kit. It's, where's the part number? DA3178P. This is just a sort of a cheapy kit because it's my kit. But it's got everything I need. It's got the main swivel seal, it's got the hub seal, and this is the one that's leaking. It's got the grease, it's got a new top pin, retainer ring, shims, bearings. I'm sorry, I'm a bit short for space. And gaskets. It's got everything I need. So, I know the swivel's not bad. The swivel ball's good, and the CV's good. So we're going to strip it down. So the first thing we're going to do is undo the brake pipe here at the top, the connection. We're going to clamp first the brake pipe and take this pipe off, and we'll take the caliper off. That's only 2 bolts at the back. All right, they're 13mm 12 point. I usually bang on a 1/2 inch 12 point, and that gets them off. But we're not going to disassemble the caliper. We're just going to pull it off and get it out the way. Right, with the bolts out the caliper, safely thrown in the box. Take the caliper off. The next thing we're going to do is take off the ball joint, get rid of that, and then cap off here, which shouldn't be too bad to do. I bet I haven't got the tool here. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's not really the tool, but it'll do. So take the circlip off and hold on to the shims and the spring, because we want them, and then we can take this hub off. So like I said, we'll whiz that nut off. This has got a split pin in. The split pin, fortunately, is nice and free. I know you can't see it, but you'll have to believe me, it's there. It's very difficult. I have no room at all to work today. So we'll get that. Oh, look, it's going to come out with my fingers off. There you go. We'll throw that away. We don't need that. Get that nut off. These off here, and this clip here. So here we go. There's the. These are the shims off the end. Somehow, if they'll come off, they're usually held on with a bit of grease. So there's the spring clips and the shims. Keep those. We'll put them on the wing top so we forget where they are. Now you probably observed down here I've got a bucket to catch any residue, oil, because once we start taking this apart, like from the top pin, it'll start to drop out. So now we're going to take the flange bolts off. Oh no, I'll tell you something, I've got a 19mm there, so we'll take this nut off here. That's the one for the swivel ball, not for the swivel ball, but the ball joint. I'm all confused today. Take that off. There should be a washer under there. Yes, indeed. Again, let's put that top on the wing top, and disconnect the ball joint with our disconnecting ball joint tool. Big hammer. There we go. That's that out of the way. Right, next we'll take the flange bolts off. Loctite. On these later flanges there was no spring washers, it was just held on with a little bit of Loctite. Get the flange off. If it will. There we go. Just make sure there's no spring washers in there. Next, I'm going to locate where the lock nut is tightened over. Can't see that, can you? So we're going to get a chisel that off, and then we're going to get the spanner and take off the hub nuts. Right, with the lock nut backed off, we can use this 52mm Brit part socket and undo the nut. one out the way. Yeah, you can see there's a bit of play on that bearing. Discard the lock washer and then take off the nut. Now, these are nicely greased up still, so that's alright. We don't really have to touch anything here. That's off. Now pull off the whole hub. That's it. And keep it somewhere clean. Now the next thing, we're going to get these bolts off here, off the flange. You can see it's quite rusty, eh? It's a bit of a mess. Well, like I say, we've got to keep this shield. Now I think I just put this axle on as it was. I seem to recall. I'll show you how to get it off. You see what I mean? There goes the grease. Not much in it, I don't think. That's rounding off. That's good. Oh dear, there's almost one bolt, isn't there? He's still there. This one at the bottom is not playing ball. I'm going to bruise the end of the bolt over, the bolt that's in there. Tap the socket on and hopefully we can get this one off. Well, that's a bit of a problem. We've got a stuck bolt. I'll get a 16mm key and a socket and I'll nail it on. Actually, for fun, we'll use these tools, these left-hand threaded tools, and see if that will bite onto it. And off it comes. I bet you all want them. These tool sets here are absolutely worth the weight in gold. We're getting nasty bolts out like that, but you know, once they're in, they're usually pretty knackered anyway. To get the hub off, tap it with a hammer shaft. Don't tap it anywhere else. You can see everything inside is nice and greasy. And there's our CV. Now I'm just going to get a bit of paper. Now we're going to just check the CV. That's good. I'll put that to one side. That's done. Now we can actually take off the bolts off the top of here, and all that assembly will come out of the way. You can see where the brackets rusty, you know, the dust guards come off. We're not too concerned about that. Actually, it's not too bad. So the wheel bearing was a bit loose on this side. 17mm, got to get them off. They're tight. Now, this one in this back corner is particularly difficult to get into. I wish I had some more space, I tell you. You'll see that this bracket isn't quite the same as a Defender bracket because it's off a Range Discovery. If I can get my gun in there now. Not that one. Need an adapter. Damn, I've just had last minute. What have I done with that adapter? Let's see. I don't know if these will come up. Oh, they're tight. So we're going to have to put the big bar on those back in a tick. Right, I broke the back with a big breaker bar. So now they should come out. One. Two. Top plate. Now you can see this one's a little bit different, this pin, because it's this is for the ABS type of pin. This is the ABS sensor. We don't need that anymore, but we need the shims because we're going to change everything inside this housing. Alright, so that's that off. Now the next thing, oh no, wait a minute, what have we got here? Oh yeah, no, that's a bearing. Is it? I hope so. If not, I'm stuck. We really need to take the bolts off the back of that plate, but they're a bit rusty. So tell you what we'll do, we'll get a 14mm key and we'll take the flange bolts off here that holds the flange on, and we'll do the rest in the bench. You can see now why I wanted to drop this down a little bit so the grease can get out at the bottom, but you can see how liquid it is, eh? That's not really grease at all, it's just oil and grease. You know, good job of changing it. Let me get the bolts off the flange. The bolts that hold the flange on are a bugger to get into. They're a 14mm double hex spline. So what we're going to do first of all, we're going to crack them off with a 14, and then to wind them out we're going to use a ratchet spanner to get them out. So I think they'll be tight. I can't ever remember taking this apart. I think I just put the whole bloody axle on. Let's have a look and see how tight these are. Not bad. Tight, but preciously tight. In fact, I think some of these I've got a strip. So there, we'll get that one off there. And then we'll get our ratchet spanner and ratchet them off. I never liked this idea. Should have been like a series truck and put nuts and bolts in. Would have been far better. I'll get this one off and then I'll struggle on with the rest. They're not looking very good. Now, if they're not looking good, you can cut them off with a grinder and then get the threads out later. Now, you can't see this, but I'll show you how I've got one out. This is why we use this ratchet that hasn't got a little lever on here. These are reversible. If you want it the other way, take it out. You see they've got a washer. So once you get the bolt out, you can see what happens. You can get this out and then undo it with your fingers, and then this whole assembly comes out. If you get it out so far with the ratchet one with a lever, this will hit the back of the swivel ball and then you can't get it off. So you've got to be careful. Well, sometimes you can. I don't know why I'm rushing. Oh, I know, I'm expecting a phone call. Right, let me get on with these. Well, this is great. I've now got 3 stripped off bolts here. Can't get them off. Going to try a little pair of Stiltsons. See if they'll get a grip. Try this first. Sometimes it works. Little pipe wrench, you know. but I doubt it because it can't get a nice square bite on it, you know. No, can't get onto it enough. Oh, something happens when we're busy here. No. So what I'm going to do is just chop the heads off, and then we'll be able to get them off. Chop them off with the grinder. Then we'll be able to pull that assembly off and then undo the bolts. Because the bolts will come out quite easy if you use a bit of hot air, hot gun, heat, on the flange to break off the Loctite. And then they'll come off quite easy with a pair of vice grips, but at the moment we're wasting our time. Let's get them cut off. Well, I ground off the two on the sides, but the top one is particularly difficult to get into. So all is not lost. Sawzall. Put your glasses on just in case we have a terrible, terrible accident. Always have the bluntest blade possible. Right, that took some getting off. Now we can use our dismantling tool to get behind the washers and pull them off, like that. Like that. Now we're going to use our dismantling tool to try and break this flange without damaging the gasket, like that. Now we're going to pry it out just ever so slowly. It's going to go. It's the one at the top that was a nasty one, because when you're sawing things it will actually burr over the end of the bolt. It would have to be the top one. I wonder if I can get another type of pry bar in there. Oh, I'll use this one. It's just that bloody top one. Going. Oh. I'm going to move the oil out the way because this is going to fall on the floor. Of course, because we've got some cut bolts, you can't get the pry bar in all the place. There we go. There we go. And that's the seal we need to replace. We're going to take that apart on the bench later after lunch. So now we're left with 3 stubs in here. I wonder if we can get them out with our wonder tool. Well, maybe. Maybe. Size of it. Too big. Ooh. That one's rounded off. Oh, it's too big. The very one I want to bust in. What about that one? That's too small. Oh, that's too small. So, back to the drawing board. Warm up the flange. break the Loctite. This is a typical repair. You know, the problems you have. Right, try that. Try the vice grips, because these shouldn't be really, really tight, do you know what I mean? Should be no tension on these. There should be. There you go, see? I wasn't lying to you, was it? So they can come out without damage. You with me? There you go. Bit warm. I'm going to do that for the other two.